Mukesh, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with me for this exciting summit. For those who might not have come across you or shared the path with you yet, how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, for your beautiful invitation. Yeah, to briefly introduce myself, I have been into the self-exploration for the last 2 decades or more than 2 decades. I was inspired by the teachings of Buddha, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Upanishads, the ancient teachings from East and West. And my deep interest since childhood was to discover what is the deepest purpose of human's life, why we are here. And is there a different way of living? Because as I was growing up, I was quite discontented with the things in education, in the society, because I saw a lot of suffering, lot of unnecessary conflicts, people engaging in. So all these questions became really burning inside me. And that quest, which started at the age of 16, is still going on after 30 years or so. And my exploration brought me into deep contact with J. Krishnamurti's teachings and other teachers. And I started exploring these questions, not just philosophically, academically. Though I studied masters in philosophy, both Eastern and Western, but I also saw the limitations of it. They were mostly, if I can say, based on intellect. Of course, those philosophers, they must have experienced something. That's why they shared. But the way it was presented, taught, it remained mostly at the level of intellect. And I was somehow feeling that the philosophy has to serve life, our daily existence, not just one aspect of our personality, namely the intellect or the brain. So all these questions brought me to this point that philosophy has to be directly related with life, our daily life, and it has to be existential. It has to deal with these fundamental questions of life. How we are living, why do we suffer? Can there be peace, harmony on this earth? And this inquiry has been going on. I have been conducting retreats. I call them meditative self-inquiry retreats around the globe. And over the years, I have developed this meditative and transformative self-inquiry approach, which is essentially based on 5 elements. And I think we are going to explore it much deeper as we go into our conversation. But to just give a hint in the beginning, that this approach is based on deep listening, deep observation, deep learning, deep leisure or rest, you can say, and love. So these are the 5, I call it 5 L's, this inquiry: looking, listening, learning, leisure, and love. So we will explore it as we go into our conversation.
Oh, you have included love in that list. It's something that is at the core of everything, yet it's so under discussed in many circles in relation to existential ideas or the teachings of these philosophies. Like you say, I've had a very similar experience, finding everything very intellectual, even in a course where I was being trained to use it as skills. There is as an element of translating that intellectual understanding of these ideas into something experiential, but it's definitely more focused on, for me and my training, focused on counseling, which of course needed to be, because it is it was a counseling training. But how do we make these ideas an experience? How does that work?
Yeah, that is the existential question, I would say. So, as I said, this meditative and transformative self-inquiry is based on these 5 elements or 5 qualities. And the first is this listening, deep listening. Actually, we do not learn this great art. This listening is a great art of living. How do we listen? This question is not raised even in academics, in our schools, in education system, that we think that hearing is listening, but physical hearing is just one aspect of listening. The holistic deep listening happens when the mind is quiet. Usually our minds are not quiet. They are reacting according to its background. So I am listening to you. If my mind is not quiet, I won't be able to listen to you. If I'm already prepared with an answer, how to reply to you, and my mind is occupied with it, so that means I'm not listening. I'm just waiting what I want to say. And this is what happens in general discourse in society. I remember in our school days, debate culture was encouraged, but there is a deep difference between debate and a dialogue. In a debate, one is focused on proving one's point. And what happens in this process? There is no deep affection. We are so attached to our point of view and we want to prove that. So there is no any existential dialogue happening because we are not concerned with listening to the other. So this listening happens from a quiet mind, from a heart which is loving. Then I am fully present to listen to you, to listen to any different view, so that there is no barrier. I'm not treating you as something opposed to me. I'm looking at you as a human being. I am a human being and you are a human being, and two humans are interacting. And this interaction cannot take place unless I am free from my prejudices, my fixed opinions, unless I am open, unless my deep concern is to discover what is truth. And truth is not yours or mine, it's universal. Views can be personal, but truth is universal. If we are both concerned in finding out, exploring what is true for all of us, then I will be willing to let go of my attachment to certain opinions, prejudices. There will be a certain freedom. So this deep listening is a movement of freedom. In a relationship, without deep listening, there cannot be harmony. So even when we are meeting our friends or clients or our family members, what is the quality of listening? And it is related to our daily existence. If we can learn this art, so in this meditative inquiry, we learn this great art of listening from one's whole being, not just from the one small part of the mind with all the stories. So this deep listening, and then there is also this quality of deep looking or observation. How do we look? Is it just optical looking? So I'm not talking about just physical looking. There are people who don't have eyes. That doesn't mean that they cannot look. They can look from other senses. They can feel deeply. So this looking can happen again when the mind is quiet, is free. When I am able to look at you as a total human, not a label. Now, this is one of the fundamental problems in human consciousness, that we are all brought up with certain conditioning, and this conditioning can be identification with a certain nation, a certain religion, language, culture. So we get attached and we are brought up with those labels and we believe them to be true. Then I become identified. I never question. So I am living with unquestioned ideas about myself and the others. And this causes a lot of separation, division, psychological separation, and conflict. So I'm not looking at myself or the other holistically with freedom. I'm looking at you through an image my mind is projecting, the ego mind or the conditioned mind. So then I never discover my deepest essence. And the purpose of this meditative existential inquiry is to discover what is our deepest essence, which is not clouded by any false ideas. So can I learn to look beyond the images, beyond the boundaries? Can we meet each other without any division? Then there is an instant communication, a deep communication, not just based on the ego mind or intellect, but based on this deep stillness of being. And when we are really deeply looking and listening, we learn naturally. Learning is a way of life. We learn every moment how my mind is reacting, how my mind is judging myself or the other. As long as it is judging, then it is imprisoned in its own judgments. So can I look at you beyond all judgments? Can I look at myself? Because usually we don't love ourselves. We are filled with judgments since childhood. That's why there is so much guilt, sense of always feeling that I'm lacking something. Then other people are telling the whole this media and the advertisements that something is missing in you and you should do this and that. So we are never taught. We are never invited to learn what is our deepest essence, which lies beyond all these false layers. And it can only happen with this existential deep learning. And learning happens when there is a sense of deep leisure, a deep rest. If mind is not at rest, quiet, it cannot learn. And a school is a space where mind can be at rest, not worried, all the time competing with others. Otherwise, what happens in our educational institutes? There is a lot of competition, lot of stress, because we are focused on achieving just goals set by others. We never ask what I really want to do from my whole being, what I really love to do. All the time I am measuring myself according to others. So how can I love myself? How can I learn? Our schools, colleges become like factories where there is no any deep rest, a pause. So what we gather, what we end up gathering is a lot of knowledge and information. Actually, we have to ask this question: is gathering more and more information, knowledge, the purpose of education? We can gather a lot of knowledge. There is no end to it. But unless there is a love in my heart, deep compassion in my heart, unless I learn to relate to myself and relate to you as a human being, I'm not educated. So we have to really unlearn a lot of things. And then this deep learning can begin. And the fifth element I always talk about is love, which is the ground of everything. Without love, I cannot listen to you. I cannot listen to myself or any other human being. Without love, I cannot look at you. Otherwise, I will be filled with my judgment images that you are British, I am Indian, that is American. Our mind is chattering with all those false images. So I have to go beyond that. Then I can look at you and at myself with a deep peace of the mind, of the heart. And without love, that is not possible. Without love, deep learning cannot happen. And this existential inquiry, this deep meditative and transformative self-inquiry is based on this deep love where there is no division. We are human beings beyond all labels, images, ideas, and opinions.
I've never heard anyone say so clearly how important it is to rest, to take that leisure time, and to tie that in so poignantly with the way that the education system it is and is all around the world. I have so many young friends, or indeed young clients for many years, who are, even at such a young age, so in so much suffering, even to the point of self-harming and suicide, because of the intensity of their learning experience. And the way that you are speaking about learning here not only promotes the good importance of learning, but warns us of learning without direction, learning without authenticity, learning without rest, learning for the sake of learning, or because you're being forced to learn, hearing what the teachers are saying with a specific focus on, I need to hear and process this and save this in a part of my brain, which will allow me to scribble it down frantically in a piece of paper, and then finally be able to forget it and be free and move on to whichever next exam comes. There is so much suffering that I see and share with people on a day-to-day because of the way that learning is. And I feel kind of like you said, there is this necessary process of unlearning that way of living, which can take years. Now moving from younger clients and friends to older clients and friends, even in their mid to later life, unlearning this process of how to be that was indoctrinated at school and at an educational level is such a deep source of trauma. And I want to clarify that I'm not against the education system. The system is so important for many ways, but it wouldn't be truthful for me to not say that I see the harm, and I spend so many hours and years with people unpicking the harm that it has had on them.
Yeah, Natalie, it's so important to relook at our whole educational process and ask these deeper questions. What is true learning? What is learning which involves the whole of life and not just one aspect of our personality? So the great mistake which has happened and is also happening now, that we focus on the intellect, just on the gathering of information, more and more information. And we totally neglect the other part of our being, personality. And we never ask those questions, though we are living day and night with our psyche, with our mind, with our heart, including the professors, teachers. Everybody is. I would say everybody is suffering, but nobody says. Nobody asks that why I'm suffering. They think to respond to these questions, it is a job of philosophers, religious teachers. But in the schools, education system. We are here only to equip ourselves with how to earn our living, but we neglect a very important aspect of ourselves. What we will do with all these skills if we don't know how to relate to myself, my psychological world, how to relate with my fears, with my anxieties, with the ambitions I am filled with. I think everybody goes through all these questions, but these questions are not encouraged, they are not heard, they are not discussed really deeply. So the purpose of this deep learning includes learning about oneself, about the whole of life. Because just see the condition of the world, even after all this industrial revolution, the scientific revolution in the past 500 years. Can we say we are really educated if wars are still going on? If we have not learned to live without wars, what did we learn after 2 world wars? And the purpose, the deep purpose of education is to bring this freedom from all kinds of war and nourish our deepest creativity in all spheres, in all areas of life, science, technology, psychology, how to live on this earth, and ask this very deep question: what is love? What is compassion? These are not just ideas. Without this energy of love and deep compassion, we cannot relate to each other. We cannot coexist harmoniously, happily. So I feel all these schools, and school is not just confined to boundaries, certain boundaries. For me, school is wherever one, two, or few minds, hearts are engaging together, asking these existential questions. So school is an open space where everyone is deeply interested in finding out what is false and what is true. Because we are living with so many false notions, ideas, and they have to be unlearned. So that's why learning is not possible without unlearning what is false, unnecessary, illusory. So in a deep sense, I have to empty myself of all that which is not serving my existence, which is bringing conflict, which is bringing disharmony or wars. That's why this meditative self-inquiry is so important. It is not just for philosophers or psychologists, it is for everyone. Actually, everyone is living with all these questions, but they don't find space to share it. So we can enable these listening spaces as parents, as friends, as therapists, whatever we are doing.
It makes me think that when you're saying everybody is questioning these questions, it makes me think that when we are questioning them in a space, like you say, in a school, whatever that school looks like, in that shared collective way, it's this really often exciting, creative, curious, never-ending journey. It's this amazing experience to share this exploration of the big questions. But when we do it alone, especially when we start to get to that age, which is unique for everyone, but we get to that moment in our life where we start to recognize and have the capacity to ask these big questions, but we are asking them into almost a void, and not finding answers that make sense immediately. It can lead to absolute despair. It can lead to absolute panic. And this is such an obvious reason that I see before me now as to why recognizing these questions are part of existence is important, but recognizing the importance of speaking about them, even that's just, over a cup of tea with a friend, to be very English about it. It doesn't mean that you need to go and open the textbooks and, go mad down philosophical routes, but just questioning, talking, exploring, it's so important.
Yes, absolutely. Once I open my heart, my mind with a friend, that opening up itself is an act of freedom. And there is a whole art how to share, how to open up. If I am sharing with the motive that I should get a certain answer, then my sharing becomes limited. So can I share with a sense of wonder, with a sense of not knowingness? I recognize all these patterns in myself. I see so many things happening inside me and I don't know the answers. It's a very honest stand to acknowledge to oneself, I really don't know the answers, though I read a lot in the books, people are saying, but is it really my answer? I have to ask this. So can I share with a friend, with a teacher, or anyone? Of course, an atmosphere of trust is required. If I am sharing with you and I am worried that you are going to judge me, then my sharing will be limited. So actually, a deep sharing can only happen when there is a space of trust that my friend whom I am sharing with is not going to judge me on the basis of what I share, is not going to draw any opinion about me. That's why we see in society, in relationships, people hesitate to share. There is a lot of fear. If I say this, how I will be judged, looked at. So how can there be any deep sharing if there is any fear, any worry, any sense of judgment? Share without finding a particular answer. Actually, it is not about finding answers. It may sound a little strange. This inquiry is about deepening the questions. So can I share a question, my deep question with a friend, and look at it? Look at it without any conclusion and keep it open-ended. So then it becomes a journey. Then the question will answer itself. If I stay with the question, then it becomes a meditative journey. Usually, we are told ready-made answers and we live with the answers. We never question them. That's why there is no authenticity then in our living. If I stay with the question and allow that question to become deep and deep, and I don't mind saying to myself and to a friend, I really don't know. I think this is a very beautiful statement, not just a verbal statement, but coming from your being. I really don't know, but I'm deeply interested in finding out.
I think so many people are deeply uncomfortable with I don't know, with not knowing, with uncertainty in all shapes and forms. And this idea of asking questions not to find a single answer that then writes that question into the abyss, leaving that question kind of ticked off and organized and forgotten is the word I'm looking for. but rather keeping these questions alive, seeing where they can grow, being comfortable with the uncertainty that brings, but seeing that as a liberation and just as part of an experience of curiosity and just searching it. And it makes me think of what you were speaking earlier in terms of war. Not only do we have, let's say, the larger wars, of course, you know, World War One, World War Two, the wars like this that are going on right now, but right down to smaller places when we have a constant conflict that comes from, you know, this many things, this lack of love, this need for a one winner. Because I think when we're asking questions with the need for a single answer, that is our sense of winning. And so we're almost always having to win. We're always in a battle, either with ourselves or with the project at hand. And it makes me think that the war, it's not just the bigger wars out there, but the wars on the interpersonal levels in our daily life, and then the wars that go on within ourselves, all of them feeding into everything.
Yes, actually, the outer war is a manifestation of our inner war. What we are, society is. This is very simple, a fundamental truth. What you and me are, that creates our surroundings, our society, our world. And if we want to bring about a deep transformation in society, it has to begin with oneself, with you. And together can we grow in that transformation, in that deep learning. So what is the way of this transformation? How does it happen? It can only happen when I am seeing things as they are. To see false as false, to see conditioning as conditioning, and not to continue worshipping the conditioning. The whole war is that I am saying my conditioning is better than you, and you are saying the same. And so we both are attached to our past baggage, what we have been feeding with, and we never question it. We think all these layers are true. And so first of all, I have to see with what lie I am living with, and to look at it as it is. And if I see something as untrue, unreal, or false, if I see from my whole being, observe it, not from my past baggage, but from a deep, still mind, from my whole heart, then it is not possible for that illusion to continue. That false layer will drop, dissolve on its own. There will be an insight into that pattern which is false, and it will drop instantly. It continues because I am believing in it. The whole world believes in it.
Would you like to share a bit more about your project, of self-inquiry and meditative transformation?
Yeah. So I have founded this school for self-inquiry, and it's an open global platform. There are retreats, self-inquiry retreats happening in many countries of Europe, in Israel, in Canada. So we are open to conduct these retreats wherever we are invited. And we share all these insights, this whole approach of meditative and transformative self-inquiry. We also conduct seminars for teachers, psychotherapists. So it is open for all. It is not confined to just one group of people. It can be shared with businessmen, with people who are into education, or into spirituality or philosophy or just a common man. Because I feel there is an urgent need to deeply learn about this self-inquiry, because it can support this inner transformation and therefore a transformation in the whole society. And we need it. Otherwise, we are going to miss a wonderful opportunity on this earth. We are destroying environment, nature, everything is being polluted, our air, all these great gifts of nature, water. So this existential inquiry addresses all these issues, the whole of our existence. We also offer this one-to-one sessions for a sustained period, it can be for a few months, 6 months or a year, where we engage into these questions. And the focus is not providing answers. Actually, it is enabling a space where a deep reflection can happen, a deep listening can happen, deep looking can happen. And we learn to stay with the questions and we allow those questions to answer themselves. So it's not about instructing or teaching, but creating this deep learning, which is inside each one of us. Unless we uncover our deepest essence, which is beyond all these false layers, and begin to live from there, we continue to carry the heavy burden of our past baggage. And we remain an instrument of the ego mind. So we can see how people are living. We can see in our lives how past is playing the game. So the purpose of all these retreats, workshops, these one-to-one session is to allow our deepest essence to unfold.
We've spoken about why people would benefit and would want to come, but why wouldn't people want to come? And by that I mean, why might someone be apprehensive or scared, or indeed why are people not naturally doing this process of self-inquiry? Another angle maybe to look at is, what do people find hard when they come to these retreats and workshops, let's say?
Yeah, usually people have this image that self-inquiry is for the philosophers or for specific people. And I can understand, because this perhaps is not shared enough, that it can be a very natural process of our living. So there is an apprehension. If I go there, it may, take me to another direction of mysticism and all that. But it is not about mysticism or something Oriental philosophy, or as I have been saying, it is about our daily existence, how I am living inwardly and outwardly. So once they taste this self-inquiry, which is not just a philosophy, but it can be a way of living.
You said people might not be engaging with this process already because they're not aware of it. And I think another thing too might be that people can have this tendency to think, well, actually now I've become aware of something, let's say of a possibility, I'm still going to block myself from doing that because I don't know if I really deserve that, or because it feels so new and I can't imagine making that jump and that change. This, I, even though I'm not comfortable in the way that I am, at least I know how that looks. At least that's familiar for me. So even going towards something that I know could have this possibility of being so wonderful, I'm going to hold myself back. And I think some people recognize that consciously, as it were, and some people it's going on much deeper with under the surface. What would you say to people who might be in that position?
Yeah, I can understand, because many people can have this fear, this worry. And so what I would say that we invest so much energy in so many things, in earning a livelihood, in doing things. Why can't we give some energy to learn this art of living? And inspiration can be a triggering point. So there are also videos. We have this School for Self-Inquiry YouTube channel, so they can also watch. And there are other teachers who are quite inspiring. They can also watch those videos. So maybe this listening can be a good starting point. Actually, listening is the beginning of learning. And we have to take some steps, of course, out of our comfort zone. If I take one step out of my known fears, then life is waiting to embrace me. That freedom is waiting. So why am I depriving myself from that freedom? Actually, when I'm not facing things inside me as it is, the fear continues. The more I escape from myself, from meeting myself, the more I live with fears. And if I begin to see the beauty of life, this is very important. I wanted to talk about, to feel this sense of great beauty, the great wonder. We are all the time lost in our thought world, in the constructed world of the mind, all these stories. But do we ever look at the universe, at the stars, at the nature? There is so much happening and there is a great beauty. And I'm part of that whole existence. I'm not separate from it. I'm very much part of the nature, the whole cosmos. So can I see the beauty? That also means seeing the beauty of one's existence. And that can be very inspiring. To begin to see the beauty, the love, the value of all these qualities, the value of living now, not all the time lost in our past baggage. So there is a stepping out of this self-created prison, if I can say. So can we step out of it? Even once we taste it, then it will open up a big window, a door. Then I feel life is a great teacher. It is all the time guiding. Am I listening to it? Listening to the unknown. We are all the time living with the known. But there is so much which we have no clue about. So can I learn to listen to that call of the unknown?
The call of the unknown. I love that. I love that. I have a sense just from sitting with you, and I hope that the viewers might have it too, that this process of self-inquiry and the journey of exploring the process itself could be quite addictive, can be quite Yeah, and so I'm sure that this is not going to be the first or indeed the last time that I have this exploration in some shape or form. It's been honestly an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And I just wondered, before we come to a close with our interview today, was there anything else that you wanted to add or to share?
Yeah, I can say that in this meditative self-inquiry, we do not just, impart information or knowledge. It is not about giving more and more information about wisdom, but it is about sharing a deep presence. Actually, transformation happens by itself in a deep presence. So when the presence is shared, is unfolding, then that transformation is happening. And because people have this idea that filling oneself with lot of knowledge, information will give us some truth or a deep transformation. But I feel in that process, people will become more occupied with all these information about wisdoms. So it's not filling our vessel with all kinds of information, but it is about emptying the vessel. Then the energy of life can rush through you. It's waiting. But if my cup is full with knowledge, with information, with analysis, then there is less space for transformation. So in these retreats, in this meditative self-inquiry, we become in a way deeply silent, empty, yet full of a different kind of energy, an energy of life. And this is the miracle of presence. Presence flowers in presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you absolutely so much. I've really appreciated it, and I'm so excited to share this. It's making me really especially motivated. I feel some kind of urgency to start editing and sharing the summit. After speaking with you, I really just want these words to be shared wider, because I think what this summit has done so far, hopefully well, is to look at existential ideas in quite a theoretical way, but expressing many speakers express the need that it is not theoretical, that it is a lived journey, it's a way of living, it's an outlook to life, it's a perspective on life, it's an approach to living. But for me, something really special that you have offered today is how we can apply that. So I really thank you for that, and thank you for coming.